We welcome you back to the Patrick Netherton Show right here at 1130 The Tiger, and we are pleased to welcome in arguably the best follow on Twitter there is. He is Adam Jacobi from Go Iowa Awesome, and just being awesome in general, and the man who has amazing, impeccable taste in music. Adam, how are you, my friend?
I first of all, I agree. I am the best follow on Twitter. The one thing I don't agree with is the assertion that Smooth by Carlos Santana featuring Rob Thomas of Matchbox 20 is one of the best songs ever made. The words "one of" are entirely unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
It's the best song ever made.
Okay.
It's without question.
Okay. Well, my apologies for my apologies for qualifying that. I should not have, and I do want to apologize to you for that.
This interview is over.
Oh, well, that's all right. I mean, look, we literally played the Boll Weevil song right before you came on, so it's not like this show's going anywhere anyway. All right, before we get into all the craziness going on around Iowa, what the heck does Go Iowa Awesome mean? That's the site that you're the co-owner of, do a lot of, obviously, mostly Iowa content, but what does Go Iowa Awesome actually mean?
Well, it's a jammed together collection of words that is basically a catch-all for everything about Iowa sports that is good and worth celebrating. Sort of a cheer, sort of a rallying cry, and sort of something we put together when we found out we couldn't keep our old .com name.
There you go.
So it's an ethos. I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
It suits me. It works for me. It's good enough. All right, so this is, to me, you're a super interesting follow because you're hilarious on Twitter. And by the way, if you want to follow him, it's at Adam_J_tweets. If you would like to follow him. So I think you're hilarious on Twitter, but you also are, I don't want to say woke. That's such an overused term, but you're very much into what's going on around us socially, what's going on in the world at large, and you do comment on that. And I kind of feel bad for you at times, Adam, because you have such a reputation on Twitter that when you try to be serious and talk about serious topics, people don't believe you.
Oh, it's a disaster. Yes. I'll try to tell something serious, and I get about a dozen replies like, "Oh, here he goes again." Like, no, I actually just want to. Can we have a serious talk? And that usually only encourages people. Right. They're like, I've heard this one before, and to their credit, they have. This is an earned reputation completely.
Yeah.
But yes, there are some situations, especially this day and age, that requires actually taking things seriously.
Yeah.
It's the skosh.
It's and it. I tell everyone, look, we're here in sports talk radio, especially. We're in the sandbox of life. That's where we are. We don't like to have to take things seriously. Like, we don't want to have to deal with the world at large, but you just can't get away with it and away from it because, especially and my focus a lot is on college athletics because I work for a university. Apologies to your 06 Iowa team. But I work for Northwestern State, and so I'm around a lot of these various athletes and whatnot, and we're seeing a very interesting time in college athletics because we're seeing these athletes finally understand that they have a voice, and to me, it's fascinating to watch. You're kind of at the epicenter of it right now. To me, Kirk Ferentz is the epicenter of this thing right now. Tell me about kind of watching what's going on at what has traditionally been a conservative, staid program that now is starting to open up and you're starting to see things revealed.
Yeah. First of all, you had to bring up 2006.
Yeah, I did.
Didn't you?
I did.
Yeah. This interview is over.
Yeah, well, second time.
Second of all, the thing about Iowa football is, for years, the policy was no social media for the athlete. And once you stepped foot on campus, your Twitter went dark. They eventually loosened the restrictions for Instagram and Facebook. But anything public facing, you weren't going to say anything, and that was everyone knew the rule coming in, and the rule never changed. So, it was part of the deal. So there was only so much an athlete could say about that, but it has the effect, as you mentioned, of taking these athletes' voices away. And we're in a situation right now in the country, especially, but really the direction that college athletics has been taking for a while now, that athletes' voices are important. Their agency is important. Their overall humanity, their value doesn't stop once the game is over, once their cleats or their shorts are off. They're still important 24 hours a day. And a lot of fans aren't conditioned to think that way. So it causes a little bit of friction and a little bit of growth on fans' part to recognize that and to welcome these voices on issues that don't have anything to do with sports. But the world we live in now, shut up and dribble just doesn't work. You don't get to say that anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that's a worthy step. I'm glad that we're taking that step.
Well, and you know what? I go all the way back to 2013, Adam, Grambling football. When Grambling football walked off of the practice field after Doug Williams was fired and they were protesting they had moldy shoulder pads, there was mold in their buildings, their weight room was falling apart. They basically protested the conditions. They didn't go play a game at Jackson State. And lo and behold, changes happened. And I think I look at this and I go, well, it took 7 years and it took a lot of national non-sports related protesting, but it looks like athletes are finally starting to follow along with what 2013 Grambling football did, and that is they're taking charge of their own destinies and they're taking charge of their own conditions.
Yeah, and that's, again, a welcome change. I know that it is, especially in a sport like football, has been pretty much antithetical to the mindset that most coaches have, right? Because anytime they start speaking up, anytime they start asking for something else, in a culture like football, that can be difficult to differentiate from straight-up insubordination, right? Which is the worst thing that you can be in football is insubordinate. It's a very top-down power structure.
Mm-hmm.
But what we're witnessing now is that these are not, displays of anarchy, of I'm more important than the coach, and, me, not us. It's not any of that. It is working to better the situations that they're already in, to make their program or their sport something that works better for them and something that's less exploitative. And that's a relief, and I think it directly contradicts the fears that a lot of people would have that this is really about dismantling the amount of power that the coach has. It's really not about that. And I think that's been proven over and over, and rarely, if ever, disproven.
Yeah, and to me, it's about respect more than anything. Finally, you see these kids demanding, and look, there's nothing wrong with a coach who is a quote unquote hard ass, right? A guy who gets after you or whatever. But when you cross the line from maybe yelling at you to motivate you or whatever to demeaning you, now we've crossed this. That doesn't work anymore. It used to be coaches could get away with all of that they wanted back in the day. Now that doesn't fly anymore. If you want to yell at me because I did something wrong and you think it motivates me, that's one thing, but you can't demean me anymore. You can't call me names. You can't we've seen a lot of this coming out. Danny Casper, the basketball coach at Texas State, obviously the Chris Doyle, the strength conditioning coach at Iowa. We're seeing a lot of this come out where players are finally saying, look, you have to treat me with respect. Even if you're still getting on me, you still can't demean me as a person or as a human being.
Yeah, and that's a pretty wide lane that you can drive down at the end of the day, right? You don't need to demean someone to motivate them. There's so many things that you can say, hey, like, pick it up. This isn't as good as you are. And I don't think that the demeaning language helps anything. Is the thing. Like, it's entirely disposable. Now, a lot of these guys, a lot of the coaches, especially the older ones, grew up and learned their tactics and their mindsets in eras, obviously, when that sort of language was normal. So it's absolutely a situation where they have to make some personal adjustments on values that they've held for decades. And so I understand that there is going to be some rough patches in that. But, sports has always been an area where you either adapt or you fade away. And so the way that you talk to your athletes should be no different. Either you adapt to a situation where you can respect their humanity at the very least, or you're a dinosaur, and it's time to go.
Yeah. Speaking of, talking to Adam Jacobi from Go Iowa Awesome about kind of in general college athletics, but now turning more of a laser focus to Kirk Ferentz. I've said repeatedly the last 2 days, Adam, I think he's the guy that's on the razor's edge right now. I think he's the number one sort of laser-focused guy when it comes to this. You've got former athletes coming out and accusing him of things. You've got folks talking about his strength and conditioning coach, Chris Doyle. Ferentz is saying the right things right now, but I'm curious. I feel like he's either going to fall on one side and likely be fired or leave and not make the necessary changes, or he's going to reform things and make the necessary changes and people will play for him. Do you have a sense of where things might go with Ferentz sort of teetering on that edge right now?
Yeah, from what I've observed so far in the conversations that I've had, public and private, there doesn't appear to be a whole lot of energy devoted toward removal of him at this point. There's nothing NCAA related. So there's not even a hint of allegations or notices from them. So, it's not a Jim Tressel situation per se. And most of the vast majority of the former athletes that have spoken out have said that they still have a lot of respect for him. It's just that this is a cultural change that needs to happen. And his track record sort of speaks for itself in terms of placing guys in the NFL, getting wins, especially at a program that doesn't have a recruiting base to speak of. And all you have to do is look at Iowa State to see how bad things really can be if you don't have a great athletic department. So I don't see where the impetus to make a coaching change would come from. That being said, the strength and conditioning coach, Chris Doyle, who was the focus of most of the complaints, I really don't see him sticking around. He's already been placed on leave, and I think that this is sort of a first step toward dismissal process. He did put out a statement essentially calling everyone who accused him of racial statements, basically calling them liars. So I wouldn't say that tact is his strength, but if that is a negotiating ploy in terms of negotiating a buyout or what have you, to protect themselves against getting fired for cause, I get it.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I think it's unsavory, but I get it. And there is also a situation with the offensive coordinator, Brian Ferentz, Kirk's son.
Yeah, Kirk's son.
Who was, subject of not as many, but multiple incidents of racially charged language himself, and he hasn't been placed on leave. Kirk said that he didn't think that the allegations were as strong, but it's a situation where, due to nepotism laws, Brian doesn't report to Kirk. He shouldn't report to his dad. He reports to the athletic director. And that guy's been silent the entire time.
Wait. So what you're saying is, and I'm sorry, but I've been waiting to put this in here. You're saying the Iowa athletic director has punted on this.
Punted on third down, even.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Adam. I couldn't resist. I had to get an Iowa punt joke in there somewhere.
Absolutely.
I can't help it.
Punting is winning up here in the cornfield.
That's right. Punting is winning. Hashtag punting is winning.
That's right. No, our athletic director, what's a good way to put this? Likes to lead from a position of silence. We'll put it that way. So that is still right now a publicly unresolved situation. And the thought for the longest time had been that when Ferentz retires, because he's in his mid-60s, he doesn't have to be coaching anymore. But the thought has always been that when he retires, he's going to hand the program over to his son.
Yeah.
That whole dynamic has changed.
Yeah.
I don't know how well that's going to fly at all. Now, if it's another couple of years and everyone stays on the straight and narrow, maybe you open that thought back up. But I think that Iowa's list, and every program has a list, but Iowa's little short list of replacements has changed a bit over the last couple of days.
So, in your opinion, we're likely going to see Ferentz stay in place, probably the strength and conditioning coach being let go, but we're probably also going to see some real change come from this, even if it's just as much as the athletes are allowed to express themselves more than once a month in pre-approved tweets.
That's right. And thankfully, they got rid of that policy within a matter of hours.
Mm-hmm.
And what's also been cool is, again, for the longest time, these guys weren't allowed to be on social media. And so the very first day that they were allowed, the university had given them sort of a template to cut and paste text into. It was the digital version of being on company letterhead. Right? Like it's got the logo and everything like that. And, they got to say whatever they wanted to. And it was clearly not edited because you could see typos and everything. So clearly hadn't been in front of anybody else's eyes. But one after one, they made these statements in favor of team unity, in favor of Black Lives Matter, in favor of learning as white teammates. And there are dozens of them, all of them retweeted by the Hawkeye Football Twitter account, and it was really remarkable to see. And candidly, I sort of bummed out that we weren't getting this for years, right? Like, obviously, this is a very particular and unique moment, but, we're seeing sensitive humor out of these guys, and, inside jokes, clearly inside jokes, and it's like, oh, this is refreshing, this is fun. Like,
these guys have personalities. That's the thing. And even the most damning one that just came out was from the former receiver, Darrell Johnson Coolio, who basically just put out this manifesto and excoriated Kirk Ferentz and the whole program and how he was treated. But one of the things he talked about was they didn't like me because I had a personality and I was talking to reporters and had a good rapport with these guys, and they didn't like that. Now we're seeing some of that come to fruition where you get to understand, these guys aren't football-playing robots. They're people, and they've got a lot of them have great personalities and are fun to follow and to keep up with. And if people would be able to see that side of these athletes, maybe it would be more than just, hey, we're cheering for this guy just because he stepped on the football field.
Right, exactly. And so based off the statements that have happened so far, and I get that anyone will say anything in the first 72 hours of a crisis to get it to simmer down. I get that. And there's really no substitute for actual action, and that's going to take months. But it sounds like Kirk Ferentz recognizes the gravity of the moment and the need to let these guys express themselves. So it's not a situation like 2010 with Johnson Coolio anymore. Now, that being said, it's easy to say all this now when there's no games going on.
Yeah.
And the moment Iowa loses one that they shouldn't, and that happens every year, and someone starts to get spicy on Twitter, and like every large fan base, there's plenty of fans that are like that. There's probably going to be a situation that confirms the worst fears of everyone in the program.
Yeah, right? About why you don't let these guys on social media at times. Like, that's
exactly.
They're kids.
And so something like that is going to happen. It's inevitable, and it happens in every program. And so it'll be interesting to see if we still have the same we. I'm not saying, why am I saying we? I'm not involved in this decision. But it'll be interesting to see if the Iowa Athletic Department maintains the same stomach for having its players be, quote, out there and unrestricted on social media after some ugliness comes their way.
Yeah, look, so one of these kids, Adam, one of these kids is going to be mad 4th and 2 from the +35 and Iowa punts, and one of these kids is going to tweet about it, and they're immediately going to get cut. That's just what's going to happen. You don't talk about punting.
I just want to point out, last year Iowa was 15 for 21 on 4th down. They were a top 10 team in the nation, and they went to 4th down pretty often, close to twice a game. So I'm just saying, Kirk Ferentz has even evolved on that stance too.
Well, I'll take your word for it. I'm still going to make Iowa punt jokes as long as I live. I don't care who. The coach is.
Oh, they're great at going 3 and out. Don't get me wrong, but the +35 punts don't really happen that much anymore.
All right, Adam, I'm gonna leave you with a happier note. All right, since we had to talk a lot of serious business, we're going to talk. I'm going to tell you this quick story that I've told our listening audience about. Do you know the Pete and repeat joke?
I do know the Pete and repeat joke.
You do? Yeah. Okay. So I just want you to know it because I matched with, I'm single. I matched with a girl on Tinder. Her profile said, really love bad dad jokes. All right. And I thought, well, this is my wheelhouse. Like, this is my dream woman right here. We're clearly going to be married. So I send her Pete and repeat her in a boat. Pete falls out. Who's left in the boat? And she writes, repeat. I'm like, perfect. Pete and repeat her in a boat. Pete falls out. Who's left? Her answer to that question, Adam, was, I don't know. And that's when I knew that we were not meant to be together.
Oh, what a shame.
Yeah. And then I then had to explain. Once you have to explain the joke, I had to explain to her, no, you say repeat again, and I keep going, or whatever, ad nauseum. Ad infinitum, as the case may be. You keep going, and she's like, "Oh Lord!" And then I made fun of her name because she has a real hippie name, and asked her if her parents were hippies, and she unmatched me, and we never spoke again.
How are we still single?
I don't know. That's a great question, Adam. That is the number one question of the Patrick Netherton Show: is how is the host still single?
That's right. Well. I guess she didn't appreciate you taking a swipe at her name.
There you go. Rogers had your rim shot for you, Adam. Don't worry about that. Rogers is always ready. Hey, Adam, it's been a pleasure, man. Been great to chat with you. Let's definitely do it again when the season gets a little bit closer. If there's any more big news that comes out of the program, keep being you. Follow him on Adam_J_tweets. Brother, it's been a joy.
Thank you. Go Northwestern State.
Except in 2006 when they're the 14 seed against the 3 seed Iowa and Steve Alford.
God bless it.
Love you, Adam. Have a good one, brother.